Shalom, Israel. I want to give all honor, glory, and praises to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai. And I want to give honor to our forefathers out here in this truth, for the elect scattered on the four corners of the earth, to the men that's out here and the women that's out here that's doing everything to magnify the name of the Lord and following all the ordinances, all the statutes and commandments that the Lord kept for us to follow. So I want to give a shalom to all of them. Shalom to all the kids in this as well. You know, the mighty young lions or mighty young lioness out here in this truth, preaching the word, spreading the gospel, spreading the spreading all the news. That's through all the rain, snow, whatever the case may be, through anything, any trials and tribulations that there is, they're putting their foot down and standing strong for the name of the Lord. So today, we're going to go into temptations and how to overcome them. Right? So let's go to Job, the first chapter. Let me get to it real quick and I'll share my screen. Let's go to Job, the first chapter. Job 1 and 8. Let me share my screen really quick. Oh, okay. Salakia. So Job 1 and 8. Let's go to this full chapter. So let's start with 7. And the Lord said unto Satan, whence comest thou? Then Satan answered, Salakia. Let's go. Okay, let's start at 7. And the Lord said unto Satan, whence comest thou? Then Satan answered the Lord and said, from going to and fro in the earth. Now, that to and fro is obviously going up and down the earth, causing havoc, causing all type of confusion, commotion, anything that it is to bring the elect down, because that's really what it's about, is bringing the elect down. Satan doesn't really care about the people who's already doomed to die or doomed to be cast out at the end of the times. So let's go back to it. It says, and the Lord said unto Satan, hast thou considered my servant Job, that there is none like him in the earth, a perfect and an upright man, one that feareth God and escheweth evil. So that's him throwing him out right there on the forefront, basically saying, this is a perfect and an upright man. Have you considered him? And this is where you would get so-called, people will say they're catching hell, they're being tempted. Salakia. All of the above, basically. It's the Lord that sends that. So what I'm doing right now is showing you that the Lord is the one that's sending these things to people. The spiritual demon Satan is not in control. He listens to the Lord. The Lord tells Satan to do something, he does it. So don't just think that it's just Satan out here just, running to whoever he may feel like, whoever he may please. No, this is specifically ordained by the Lord. So it says, and the Lord said unto Satan, hast thou considered my servant Job, and that there is none like him in the earth, a perfect and upright man, one that feareth God and escheweth evil. Then Satan answered the Lord and said, doeth Job fear God for naught? Has not thou made an hedge about him and about his house and about all that he hath on every side? Thou hast blessed the works of his hands, and his substance is increased in the land. So basically what he's saying is you're protecting him. That's that hedge. This is the hedge that we want right here. This is the thing that will stop evil from getting in. When you have a hedge, say for example, you get a house. On your house, you're going to have like a hedge of, we all seen that movie, or, for the younger generation, Over the Hedge. the big bush. It's a big bush that protects your house or your crops or anything that you have from getting what you would call a lot of bad insects, big or raccoons, whatever the case may be. It stops a lot of that from getting in on the other side, so they stay on the other side. So basically, what he's saying is you made, haven't you made a wall that's protecting Job, basically? So 1:11 says, "But put forth thine hand now and touch all that he had, then he will curse thee to thy face." So that's Satan saying that to the Most High, saying, "Let go of him and watch him curse it." And the Lord said unto Satan, "Behold, all that he had is in thy power. Only upon himself put not forth thine hand." So Satan went from the presence of the Lord. So basically, what it's saying is okay, the Lord is saying, okay, you got all will to do what you got to do to him. But when it says put not forth thy hand, it's basically saying don't kill him. Do whatever you do to him, but don't kill him, basically. So that's when Job, lost everything. 14, and there came a messenger unto Job and said, the oxen were plowing and the asses feeding beside them, and the Sabines fell upon them and took them away. Yeah, they have slain the servant with the edge of the sword, and I only am escaped alone to tell thee. Then while he was speaking, another person came, all his sheep, the fire of God fell from heaven and burned up all his sheep. And he was the only one to escape to tell it. Then another thing happened that it fell on the camels and it carried away. So a lot of these things started happening all at once with Job, meaning that was his lot to carry. That was his hour, and not the hour of temptation like in the end of time, but that was his hour in this specific context. That was his hour of temptation right there. So he could have either did like what he said, what Satan said that he would do, curse God to his face, in 11. So it says, but put forth thine hand and touch all that he had, that he will curse thee to thy face. He could have either did that, or he could have held his integrity, which he did, and said, the Lord giveth. Matter of fact, let's go to that. So he lost everything that he had. And behold, there, Salakia, let's go to right here. So it said, and this is 1:20. Then Job arose and rent his mantle and shaved his head and fell down upon the ground and worshipped. So all this happened to him, and yet he didn't curse God to his face like Satan thought he would, which is why Job was a perfect and an upright man. So it says, then Job arose and rent his mantle and shaved his head and fell down upon the ground and worshipped and said, naked came I out of my mother's womb, and naked shall I return thither. The Lord gave, and the Lord had taken away. Blessed be the name of Yahweh. That's a perfect spirit right there. That's the perfect heart with the Lord. Then it says, in all this Job sinned not, nor charged God foolishly. What else? What would you do in that situation? You had everything. The Lord gave you everything. Then out of nowhere, he took it all in a matter of not even an hour. In a matter of not even an hour, he lost everything. He had kids, he had daughters, he had sons, he had cattle, camels, servants. He had everything. Everything what a man would consider him being rich in the ancient times. He had it all. But the Lord took it away from him to test him. That's that temptation, to test him and see if he was going to curse God to his face. But guess what he did? He shaved off all his head, or shaved off all his hair off his head, fell down on the ground and worshiped. First, he rent his mantle. He rent his mantle, shaved his head, and fell down upon the ground and worshipped. And then said, naked came I out of my mother's womb, and naked shall I return thither. The Lord gave, and the Lord had taken away. Blessed be the name of the Lord. What else more? How more perfect could you be? What else more could you do? So that's this is showing what you should do in this area of this in this position when you're losing stuff, when you're catching hell out of nowhere. It's out of somewhere. When you're catching hell, obviously you want to understand what this is, which is the Lord sending down spiritual demon Satan to go and test Job, or to go and test you, or like as if he did when he tested Job, to test anybody else. When you go into temptation, not saying that it's specifically the Lord that's tested. It is essentially, but I'm saying it's not the Lord that's actually doing it. He's sending the spiritual demon Satan demons or whatever it may be down to you to tempt you, basically. So when that happens, anytime you're going under temptation, when of temptation of breaking the law, temptation of your own lust, temptation of whatever the case may be, understand that the Most High sent it down for you to see how strong you are, as He did Job. So let's go to Salakia, Job 2:10. Salakia. Yes, 2:10. But he said, yes, 2:10. But he said, on to her, thou speakest as one of the foolish. So, matter of fact, let's go up so we can put it all into perspective. Let's go to 7. So went Satan forth from the presence of the Lord and smote Job with sore boils from the sole of his foot onto his crown. That had to have been painful. That had to have been very painful. And he took him a potsherd to scrape himself withal, and he sat down among the ashes. So he was scraping these boils. Imagine how painful that is. You just lost everything. All these things just happened, and here Satan comes again to send boils all the way from the sole of your foot all the way to the crown of your head, and all you're doing is scraping them, basically. Then then said his wife unto him, doest thou still remain thine integrity? Curse God and die. So at that time, Satan had hopped into his wife, basically telling him to curse God and die, because remember, that was the same thing that Satan had said on the first chapter. So he basically got into his wife and told him to curse God and die. But guess what he did? But he said unto her, thou speakest thou speakest as one of the foolish women speaketh. What, shall we receive good at the hand of God, and shall we not receive evil? That's a key word right there, or key phrase. And shall we not receive evil? And all this did not Job sin with his lips. That means he told the truth, basically. He did everything pure. So with that being said, he did everything pure. Then you got to understand what was just said. You're going to not only receive good, but you're going to receive evil from the Lord. And that's them temptations, right? All right. So let's go to 1 Corinthians 10 and 13. There hath no temptation taken you but such as is common to men. But God is faithful, who will not suffer you to be tempted above that you are able, but will with the temptation also make a way to escape, that you may be able to bear it. So, that's another account of him showing you that he's the one that's going to be putting you in temptation. He may not be the one that's physically doing it, but he's sending spirits on this earth for temptation, and that's to make you stronger. That's essentially what it's all for, is to make you stronger. He's a powerful, long-suffering, gracious, and these is undertitles. These are all undertitles. He's all this. What do you expect his servants to be? And how do you be that? How can you be humble? How can you be long-suffering? How can you be graceful? How can you be all these things unless temptation, which is things that hurt you and break you, build you back up in the right way, basically? How could you be strong without temptations? You can't. It's impossible. Other than if you don't get tempted, put into temptation, you would just be very arrogant, just like that. So that's pretty plain right there. He'll send temptations at you, but it's not going to be more than what you can bear, basically. So any temptation that you have, he will always send a way for you to get yourself out of that temptation. You just got to search for it, though. He's not just going, you dealing with this temptation, and then you look at this sign and it's saying, do this specific thing. It's not going to be like that. You got to really push through this thing. And that's what reading precepts come, that's the best thing that you can do, is remember a precept when you're going through temptation. That's the best thing that you can do. How how else would you get through a temptation without a precept? You would just be moving in flesh at that point. But you got to move from the word of the Lord, right? So let's go to Luke. Let's go to Luke chapter 22. Let's see what I want. Salakia, bear with me. Right here. So it says, this is Luke 22 and 46 says, and said unto them. So this is when, obviously, this is when Yahushua, who the world ignorantly calls Jesus Christ, went with his disciples into this area, and he called out Salakia, I believe it was Peter and John. Salakia. I believe it was Peter and John, or Peter. I can't remember at this point or at this moment, but so he said, so when he went with them, he basically said, all right, just wait here and tarry with me. Basically, matter of fact, let's go into that. So it says, and when he was at a place, he said unto them, pray that ye enter not into temptation. You know, that's pretty plain right there. And he was withdrawn from them about a stone's cast, and kneeled down and prayed, saying, Father, if thou wilt be willing, remove this cup from me. Nevertheless, not my will, but thine be done. So he's basically, and this was when he was about to get crucified. He's basically saying, if I don't have to go through this, let me not go through this. But if this be of your will, let it be done, basically. He was tempted right there. He was in temptation right there. And there appeared an angel unto him from heaven, strengthening him. See that? So he was tempted. He was going through temptations as well. But guess what? The Lord sent a way for him to escape, which was the angels that were strengthening him. And you're not going to always have the same temptations as another brother would. Meaning you also won't have the same, what is the word I'm looking for? Basically, you won't have the same, not all the time when you have angels coming from heaven strengthening. You will to a certain extent. Honestly, you actually will, but it just won't look like as the way that it looks like for Yahushua. You'll probably have like a brother come up, and he will speak to you. That's an angel putting in his spirit, or Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushua putting it in that man's spirit to come to you, to talk to you, and help you get through these certain things that you get dealing with. So it says, and being in agony, he prayed more earnestly. So when he was under pressure and in agony and pain, and his soul was troubled, as he was getting lower and lower, he prayed harder and harder, and his sweat was as it were great drops of blood falling down to the ground. And he said unto them, why sleep ye? Rise and pray, lest ye enter into temptation. So, that's another account of, that's one thing that we have to pray about, throughout our day. Not just one time a day, not just 2 times a day. Throughout our day is to pray that we don't enter into temptation, or to pray that when we're in temptation, that we can endure through it, because the Lord's not always just going to bring you out of it. He wants to strengthen you. But what are you if you're too weak and you fall into that temptation because you're not able to bear it? So you also got to pray for strength to be able to bear these temptations, or you also got to pray that you don't enter into temptation. But while you're there, you need to bear it, right? All right. Let's go to Matthew 26. So this is the same account. This is the exact same account. And so it said, so like it says, and he took with him Peter and the two sons of Zebedee, and began to be sorrowful and very heavy. Then saith he unto them, my soul is exceeding sorrowful, even unto death. Tarry ye here and watch with me. And he went a little further and fell on his face and prayed, saying, O my Father, if it be possible, let this cup pass from me. Nevertheless, not as I will, but as thou wilt. So this is the same account, just different chapter. And he come unto his disciples and findeth them asleep, and said unto Peter, what, could ye not watch with me 1 hour? Watch and pray that ye enter not into temptation. The spirit indeed is willing, but the flesh is weak. What does that mean? You know, we want to serve Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahweh Shai. We always do. You know, even in the world, you were trying to find someone to serve. You know, when you were wicked, you were trying to find whatever it was to serve. You were trying to serve something, basically. So your spirit is willing, but your flesh is weak. You know, you may want to read, you may want to fast, you may want to teach your brothers and sisters in the truth. You may want to go out on the highways and byways and teach. You may want to do all these things spiritually. You're ready to do them, but once you get out there, you know, now you throw in the towel. You know, your spirit is willing, but your flesh is weak, which is why he fell asleep. Right. So now let's go to First Timothy. Is this well? Yes. Okay, so like you. So all right, so I'm gonna read from 7. It says, for we brought nothing into this world, and it is certain we can carry nothing out. Basically saying the same thing that Job said. Naked, paraphrasing greatly, naked came into this world, and naked will I leave out of this world. The Lord giveth, the Lord takes. That's basically what he is. That's pretty much the exact words that he said. For we brought nothing into this world, and it is certain we can carry nothing out. And having food and raiment, let us be therewith content. So that's another thing of why we fall into temptations of certain things, is because we're not content with what we have. You know, it doesn't matter if you have the best house, the best car, you know, the best, whatever it may be. It doesn't matter what you have that's good. You need, or it doesn't matter what another brother have that may be good. You need to be content with what you have, because essentially, once you start looking at another brother or looking at another sister with something that they have, and you're starting to want that thing so bad, that's starting to become covetousness. And, you know, that will start to become idolizing. So, you know, you'll start going lower and lower and lower and lower until Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahweh Shai just spits you out. He doesn't want you no more. You know, he sends spirits to destroy you and get you up out of this truth. So it says, and Salakia, for we brought nothing into this world, and it is certain we can carry nothing out. And having food and raiment, let us be therewith content. But they that will be rich, see that? They that will be rich fall into temptation and a snare, and into many foolish and hurtful lusts, which drown men in destruction and perdition. So, you know, and you learn that in the world. The more money, more problems. You know, the more fame you get, the more whatever it is, the more problems you'll get. The more wealth you have, the more problems pop up now. The more you got to pay, basically. You know, how much more in the scriptures, how much more in the truth, you know? And that's why I said, paraphrasing, it basically said it's pretty, basically it's rare for a rich man to make it into the kingdom of heaven, because, you know, he has so much that he has and so much that he's going to be dealing with, to where he's not going to be focused on God anymore. He's not going to be worried about him, because all his, you know, and this is why the Lord deals with the poor more than anybody. It's because of that specific reason. When you have a lot of money, a lot of wealth, a lot of whatever the case may be, you start to lose remembrance of the God that gave you that. And, you know, that's one of the worst things, because the Lord gives and he takes. But imagine that he takes this and you're not right with him. So it's not like, you know, in Job where he took everything from him and then, you know, he fell down on his face and he prayed to him, and, you know, stuff still continued to happen. But the end result, he got double fold of what he got. It's not going to be like that if you're not in this truth. It's going to be he brought you all this, then he took it away from them, took it away from you, then he kills you in the end, you know, and you don't see any let up before you die. Imagine that. You know, that's that's something you don't want to go through, right? So let's go to 10. For the love of money is the root of all evil, which while some coveted after, they have erred from the faith and pierced themselves through with many sorrows. So, you know, that's pretty plain. So it says, but thou, O man of God, flee these things and follow after righteousness. So like godliness, faith, love, patience, and meekness. These are all the attributes you want to have, and these are all the attributes that our forefathers has, which was the elect. You know, not all of them was the elect, but the ones that were the elect. These are all the characteristics that they have. So if you got these characteristics, then, you know, you will probably be good when you're going through temptation, right? All right, so let's go to okay. So that's about I'm going to wrap it up. That's about it. That's about all that I have right now. So the main topic of this is be content with what you have, because as fast as the Lord gave, as fast as the Lord will take. You know, you may get all these things, you may have all these things right now, but hey, you know, the Lord doesn't play. If you're not serving him, you're not following the ordinances that he has set down for you to follow, which is in this book and these scriptures, which is a whole entire blueprint of how you should be, which is why we have our forefathers inside of the scriptures, so he can show you the way and show you what you're supposed to be doing and how to come back to the Most High God and how to be perfect, a perfect man or a perfect heart to the Most High. So if you're not following these things, you know, you're going to go into what's going to happen is he's going to put you inside of temptation. You're going to get into temptation, but you're going to fall into your lust. And once you fall into your lust, that's when wisdom's going to completely leave you. And when wisdom leaves you, then that means you have no knowledge of how you're supposed to come back to the Most High, or knowledge of how you're supposed to rule your life. Therefore, you're going to put yourselves in situations that can kill you, you know, and not even necessarily saying that, you know, you're trying to kill yourself, but you're not going to be you're not going to have the wisdom to understand, okay, I put myself in this bad position. This can happen, you know, this can happen. I can go over here and then get shot over here. Or, you know, you're not going to have that knowledge of understanding what can happen or what can go wrong in the situations you put yourself in if you get into them temptations and you fold and fall into your own lust. So it's important to read, you know, what our forefathers did when they went into temptation, how to get out of that temptation, how to you know, have a stronger mind to, you know, basically knock through all these temptations, how to have a strong mind to not curse God and die for sure. How to have a strong mind to get into these scriptures and to remember precepts and to study these precepts, so that when you're in temptation, you can remember this and recite it in your head, and you'll have that comforter. So, right, that's, you know, that's all I really want to bring out today. I just wanted to, you know, get some edification of how to endure in temptation. And, you know, you're not always going to, you know, don't always pray just to get out of temptation, or out of now it's not wrong to pray to get out of temptation, but it's wrong to think that Yahweh Ba'Shem Yahweh Shai is just going to pull you right up out of it instantly when you pray for it. So you need to, you know, ask for the most part, ask for forgiveness. Then the second part, when you're going through temptation, you need to ask how to get out of this how to endure through this temptation that you're going through. You know, if the Lord doesn't pull you up out of it, you know, pray to the Lord, you know, Lord, help me through this. Please help me. Get down on your hands, your knees, and your face towards the ground, and turn towards the east and pray to the Lord and say, Lord, I'm weak. Can you strengthen me in this? You don't always got to pray, Lord, help me, get me up out of this situation. I need you. I need you to, that's when you will start. I need you to do this. You start using them as a genie. That's when I need you to do this. And when he doesn't do it, then you start forsaking him and cursing him to his face because you're thinking he's not listening to you. So, you need to pray for endurance in this thing as well. Right. So, yeah, I'm just going to end this with the Shalom, Shalom, and all praises to Yahweh, by Hashem Yahweh Shai. Lord willing, this is edifying to the elect's sake, or to anyone that's spreading the message to the elect. We don't know who the elect is. I definitely would never consider myself the elect, but I just pray that this is, this message is going to be shipped out to the right people to hear it, to come back to the Most High God, and how to be strong in this thing. So, Shalom and peace.